Dixie Assembly. I am here with my co-host Kaiser. He is currently running for, well, just had his nomination for a Chesapeake Secretary position, but was shot down by the Assembly. He is looking to go back at it once again. This is the Dixie Show. Today we have a very special episode. Today we have the GOP presidential candidate Guns 0011, as well as his vice president nominee, Senator Joseph Ibney from Sierra. Both are senators. Guns is senator in Atlantic. Joseph is senator in Sierra. We're going to be basically discussing everything that from their plans if they get elected to the campaign as well. So stick tuned throughout the whole episode. It's going to be definitely a good one. So my co-host here has already started off with has already had a bunch of questions laid out. So I'm gonna let him start off, and then I'm gonna butt in with some random questions for these guys as well.
On the Bible, you say the words, you're officially president of the United States of America, and you're inside the White House. What is the first thing you'll do when you're inside the White House?
Well, first off, let me say thank you for having me on the show, Chris. And it's honestly an honor to be here. And let me affirm, Kaiser, what you're asking me here. Are you asking me like what am I going to do when I get into the White House, or are you asking me what I'm going to do policy-wise once I'm president?
Policy-wise, what would be the first major policy that you would try to enact on?
Well, Kaiser, I will begin the process of revoking the horrendous executive orders that President Gutierrez put into law. Not to mention, I'll begin fighting immediately for our dairy farmers across the state who have been hurt so bad under this past administration and the administration before him.
Mm-hmm. So repealing executive orders by the current president would be your first order of business.
Absolutely.
And what do you mean by what do you mean by helping the dairy farmers in the United States? We've seen a lot of corporations starting to take over dairy farming, and we've seen a lot of dairy farmers hurting. Is that what you're talking about when you mean helping dairy farmers, bringing back the traditional way of dairy farming, having independent farmers instead of these big corporations?
Well, Frost, let me be clear when I say that small farmers are the backbone of this country. Yes, we need big farming, we need all that, but the small farmers in states like Nebraska, they need our support and our backing. America has thrived off the back of farmers, and we cannot keep turning our eyes to them and allowing huge corporations to come in, steal their business, and cause them to lose their job, lose their houses, lose anything. We have to protect our farmers, and I'm beyond saddened at the percentage rate that we're seeing not homelessness. We're seeing farms being taken from our farmers because of their ridiculous policies that have been put into place by our president and the president before him. It's honestly sad. More needs to be done, and I promise our farmers I'm going to do that.
Now,
if you're wondering why I'm so passionate about this, my family, I grew up in Texas, as everyone knows. Well, it's Dixie 4 nowadays, but we still go with our Texas roots, Texas. And farming was a lifestyle around there, especially dairy farming. And I hate to see the struggle happen. It needs to be fixed.
no, this is a question mainly aimed towards Joseph Ibney, Senator Ibney. So you're trying to pass a vital immigration bill currently within the Congress, and you're running for, well, your Guns is picked to be vice president. Are you able to detail a little bit what this immigration bill has to offer?
Of course. And before I say that, just real quick, also thank you for having me on the show. It's an I listen to the Dixie Show all the time. I'm good friends with Chris Frost as well, so we've known each other for quite a while. It's great to see him doing so. In regards to the immigration bill, it's called the Admittance Reform Act. It was brought into Congress during the 118th Congress, back when I was actually a House rep, which, man, that seems like so long ago. Essentially, it is attempting to change our immigration system from strictly like a line, which is what it is now, and it's completely backed up. It's impossible for new people to make it much easier to get in, to value people who have higher education, who have more things that can be brought to the U.S. to help it improve and help our economy grow in the long term. Essentially, it puts a point-based merit system on immigration where it takes things such as like I said, the education level, the abilities that are known to the secretary, and along with a couple of other things like their age and several other factors which I could go in. It allows us to have a point-based system, which allows us to bring in the best of the best for America, and then allow them to get in quicker so that we can improve both America and bring in people who genuinely deserve to be here.
All right, I have a question, real quickly for the vice president candidate here, Joseph Imney. So I want to push on to this topic here. One of the campaign goals of Guns is one of his campaign goals. He just said was the dairy farmers. Seeing how Walmart, we all know how how big Walmart is as a corporation. The GOP is usually pretty corporate friendly. However, there has been an issue with Walmart recently in the past couple of months where they have been pushing more more of a centralized dairy farming technique where they are now taking over dairy farming. They're getting rid of their private dairy farmers, and they're no longer using private dairy farmers, and now they have these big farms where they're just milking the heck out of these cows. Do you plan as vice president at all to encourage your fellow GOP House reps and senators, seeing how you are a fellow senator, to promote any ideas, like any legislation to avoid this? Now, I'm not trying to say corporate corruption here, but this huge monopoly that Walmart, these companies like Walmart and Crowley and all these different dairy companies and big corporates are doing. Are you guys planning on doing any type of legislation to get rid of these monopolies on the dairy industry?
Well, so the GOP in history has always been the party of at first it was the party anti-slavery, and then Teddy Roosevelt came along, and he's known as the monopoly crusher. Like that is, while I'm not partial to destroying businesses that are doing well, it does hurt the economy in some ways. We have to allow for competition in the business. So if these dairy farms are soaking up all of the business, they're using unethical practices to try and gain even more money than they need to. I see it as
Which dairy farmers we
a
talk about here? We talk about the corporation dairy farmers or the private dairy farmers, like
well,
the
it actually depends on the situation. I mean, if the private in the in, I'm from what you're saying to me, I'm pretty sure that the corporations is what you're talking about. But
yeah.
even in the instance where the private dairy farms, not part of these big corporations, are hogging all the business, and we're not allowing for competition I feel it is a necessity to ensure that there is good competition through fair and equal laws to ensure that all people have the opportunity to grow as Americans. And to your other question regarding encouraging others, I believe as the vice president, it is mostly a ceremonial role. It's for lack of a better term, it's kind of a hype man. So, as the vice president, I would be encouraging others to work towards the goals of Senator Guns to ensure that we can have a united America under a Republican president and bring a bit of normalcy back. So, as a result, I do believe that in the instance we are elected vice president, I would be encouraging such things.
So, in regards to immigration, I'm going to move now to guns. So, guns, you've heard Ibney, speak his mind about immigration. What do you think about the current rate of immigration inside the United States? And would you continue the program of ICE? Would you continue ICE, or what plans do you have?
This is a great question, Kaiser. Well, let me be clear when I keep saying that, but let me be clear when I say that we need secure borders and we need a fixed immigration system. Uh, w- Given that Ibney's immigration bill passes the Senate, I will sign that bill into law because we do need a merit based system in this country. Not only that, we need to secure our borders. We need to reinforce ICE to ensure that they have the tools necessary to move further in securing the safety of our American citizens. I also believe in a full reform of our immigration system. America needs to move toward, as Ibney's bill would do, a merit-based system. Not only that, we need to move toward a secure system, a system where people can't just get in because they know somebody or because of their parents brought them here, and so therefore they get a leg up on somebody else. Or they were born here because their parents were pregnant and they came across the border. And should they be protected? Yes, but should they get an easier passage than someone who worked their tail off to get to where they were to request to become a U.S. citizen? No, they should not be able to pass in line because your mom decided to come across the border. I I've been clear in my past pushing for border security. I have wrote plenty of bills to reinforce our borders, give ICE more funding, and secure our immigration and customs all across the country. And so, yes, I do support ICE, and yes, I do support protecting our southern border and reforming our system.
And in regards to this, would you also restrict H-1B1 visas or H-1B visas?
Well, I do not think I would restrict H-1B visas.
I have a question real quickly. Speaking about this immigration topic, seeing how the Secretary of Defense and is in charge of Homeland Security, and as well as working with Secretary of State, with immigration. When it comes to your cabinet, what are you looking for in someone? What are you looking for in someone to become a secretary under your cabinet? What are you and Imni specifically looking for? Like, what type of reputation do they have? What type of background? What are you guys actually looking for?
Well, we want to ensure that our cabinet will work for America. We want to ensure that our cabinet will do everything in their power to ensure that our policies and the policies that they want to implement that are good will be able to move forward. I don't want a cabinet that just sits around and does nothing. I'll be looking for people with experience, people who know how to get the job done, regardless of political background. Let me be clear when I say that quad partisanship in America today is the way we can unify this country, is the way that we can ensure that all citizens are represented equally in America. I'm not a partisan person. Everyone knows this. So my cabinet will not be a partisan cabinet.
And so when you say partisan cabinet or not a partisan cabinet, sorry, would you actually would you actually um, nominate socialists, like people from the Socialist Party, Democrat Party, BNP? You would put these people inside your cabinet?
If they were qualified for the job and would implement policy ideas and fulfill the policy ideas of my administration, then I don't care what their party affiliation is.
Are there any so seeing the current administration that we have right now under Guilty Air,
Mm.
is there any cabinet members that are under him that you know, you might actually offer a job to? Is there anyone particular?
I am not able to answer that question at this time.
So, moving on to the drug industry, obviously, the opioid epidemic has been hitting America quite hard, with some of the poorest communities around the country being, really impacted by it. What do you want to do to take on the opioid crisis in this country?
Well, in the past, the last time I was in it's been a long time, but when I was a congressman, I wrote a bill to give more money toward our Justice Department to be able to fight the opioid epidemic. It's near to my heart. The opioid epidemic is awful, and it needs to be stopped. We need to do more, and we need to be more adamant in stopping this crisis that's being fueled by our weak borders and being fueled by Americans being taken advantage of by big pharmaceutical company. It We have to put a stop to the opioid epidemic, and I believe that in order to do this, we need to increase funding w- toward to combat it, increase funding against it, teach our students coming up how bad things like opioids and drugs and focus more on prevention than we are. Everyone does the dare not to do drugs at the dare not to do drugs program, but that's in elementary school. We need to do more in high school. We need to do more in middle school. We need to ensure that our future generations are learning that going to drugs and going to opioid an addiction can be stopped, and it's easy to say all this, and it's easy to say what I'm saying right now, but we have to actually do something. We have to actually get something done for the sake of the children of this country, for the sake of the families that had no people or have family relatives that are addicted to these opioids because they were prescribed the wrong medication, they were prescribed medicine that they didn't need, but they were given the medicine because pharmaceutical companies have such a control on our doctors and a control on the lives of the American citizens. We have
So
to put a stop to something. We have to put a stop to this crisis, and by educating prevention seems to be one of the best ways to prevent this opioid crisis from continuing in this country.
so you mentioned pharmaceutical companies. Do you think they're responsible for this crisis, and would you take them on? Would you fine them for for this crisis that's going on right now?
Big Pharma is taking advantage of the American people. Now, in regards to if I would find them, I don't know if I would go that far, but I would go as far to say we should regulate them. We should put more regulations on Big Pharma. Now, I know that a lot of conservatives hear that and turn their head, but you have to understand that they're ripping off the American consumers. They're charging more for the drugs that'll get the job done and charging less for drugs that people are getting addicted to. That's awful. That is disgusting. The American people deserve better, and Big Pharma is not giving them better. Big Pharma is not looking out for the safety and protection and the lives of the citizens that they're saying that they want to help. They're not. They're looking out for themselves, their pockets, and their board members.
So do
Eh,
you with you saying this that they're just looking to line their pockets, are you a supporter of putting a cap on certain needed prescription drugs or
Yes.
certain items like EpiPen? We've seen the abuse that the company that owns Epi has done. I mean, putting EpiPen at a price of what, $500 and more. Like, are you a supporter of putting a cap, and what would that cap be? Like, what would your idea of a cap? Are you putting, oh, you can only have nothing more than $50? Are you saying more, no more than 10% of the production cost? How are you going to put like, what's your idea of a cap?
Well, the 10% of production cost sounds about right. We have to ensure that they aren't just right now. We know that in regards to things like EpiPens, Big Pharma is completely ripping off the American consumers. Everyone knows this. Everyone that has eyes and pays attention knows this, at least. We know that. eh, So yes, a cap is necessary. How small, how big that cap is, I cannot get directly down to numbers at this time. But I can tell you that my administration will do everything in our power to prevent Big Pharma from causing more American citizens to die because they're making people choose between bankruptcy and life. And that is not a choice any American should have to make. It's just not. It's wrong.
So I want to real quickly switch away from this topic because we've been running on it for way too long. Which I want to move on to more policies now, than this big pharma topic we're on right now. For this is a question for both of you. I'm gonna have the presidential candidate, go first, followed by his vice president. I want to ask you guys a couple questions on policy. What is your first? We're gonna start off. What is your foreign policy? What type of foreign policy do you guys want to bring to the American people and into the White House?
Well, that's a great question, to be honest. So, in regards to foreign policy, I think everyone here knows when I was Speaker of the House, my chairman of my Armed Forces Committee was somebody who wrote a bill to pull our troops out of Afghanistan, Syria, and Iraq. America needs to bring our troops home from pointless regions around the world. We just need to. It's disheartening that we are seeing, but that these political wars have where we've been entrapped by political wars that were brought by President Bush and continued by other presidents in the past, that they just need to come to an end. And I can affirm to you that if I am elected president of the United States, my foreign policy will be a policy that puts the United States military first and not political gain.
And I just like to echo the comments of Senator. I mean, I have been from the very start of my political career a adamant supporter of removing troops from overseas bases when they are not necessary. Of course, there are certain bases where if we removed our troops, the country that is hosting us would be in serious problems. There's a lot of places in Europe that are like that. I know Germany has uh, several troops that are there, which if we remove them, it would be very hard for us. But the difference is in Germany, they are not at a significant risk to their lives. The most important thing is that we are not endangering American lives simply because we want to gain a few political points on the world stage or make us seem tough on foreign policy. It's simply not a good policy. We're losing American lives, American fathers, American sons, American daughters, and American wives as well. Like, it's awful to see that happen for no reason other than to simply advance a political position. So I completely agree with Senator Guns on that fact. In regards to other foreign policy, I know that you were asking, I think you were asking specifically about troop movements and stuff like that. But in regards to other foreign policy, there needs to be an advancement of NATO, specifically in Europe. I know Finland recently just joined NATO, which is an excellent boost to how NATO is working. However, the loss of Sweden, specifically their mutual assistance, is a very large blow to the region, and that simple trade makes things very.
And that was
And
due that this whole thing with Sweden was due to, well, rumors had it was due to President Guiltier. I really
yes,
want
I
to
agree.
touch base on another question similar to this topic. The United States. So the United States Department of Defense, right? They report that there are only 7 major bases that they have. However, if you read deeper into the report, there are over a thousand different locations around the world that either U.S. troops or are at, or it's a location where we use is used for U.S. military operations, such as drone bases. One being specifically in the middle of Australia, not even described as a military base. What is your plan as president and vice president? Specifically, this is towards guns more. However, I would love the vice president nominee's suggestion on his answer as well. What is your guys' plan? Are you guys planning on shutting down a lot of these quote unquote they're not even considered bases to the Department of Defense. Are you guys considering shutting down these areas? Are you considering shutting down some of these 7 bases that we have, specifically ones in Germany or Greenland?
Um, I do not support shutting down those bases because I feel that they are needed for strategic reliance and they are needed for the necessities of that they are being used for. Now, in regards to bringing our troops home from the Middle East and Africa, and in areas where they're in high risk zones, but they shouldn't be there because they're there for political reasoning, then yes, I support bringing those troops home and shutting down those military bases and building bases like those here at home and focusing on U.S. based development versus Middle Eastern based development. And I mean, as a veteran, I know that America America has been allowing politics to take advantage of our troops. And and so therefore, as Ebony stated, I literally echo everything Ebony stated a second ago. We are in complete agreement on our foreign policy, and we both know that we need to stop. We need to stop hurting a lot, putting our troops' lives on the line for political gain. We need to stop. We need to stop the promotion of political wars and bills like the war against Islamist extremism that just or allowing
The war on
military combat
terrorism.
against those wars. Yeah, like this not even the war on terror, this newest bill that was recently brought up to Congress. I issued a press statement about bills like that need to be put to an end. They need to be put to a halt.
So
It,
my
it's disgusting.
question was, are you planning on
Hurtful.
shutting down bases? Period. Like, are
No.
you shutting? So you're not planning on shutting down any bases
I am planning on shutting
whatsoever?
down bases in areas like Iraq,
Africa, you already
uh,
stated.
Africa, Saudi Arabia, those
Well,
areas, not Israel.
so your main focus is really the Middle East and Africa. But what about places like Australia? Australia has
I,
we have a
I,
U we have an unaerial vehicle a UAV base in the middle of
I believe
Australia.
that
Are
that
you
base is
planning?
necessary to continue to stay in operation.
You think Australia is going to cooperate in keeping that base still open?
What I can say is that if I'm elected president of the United States, we will take into account all of these situations in Australia and in places like Germany and Poland and things of those nature, and de- develop our ideas of if that base is necessary or not. Once we get a Secretary of Defense that will work for us and help us to ensure that we are making the correct decisions in that regard, especially in regards to funding and where we can cut back to give back to the American people.
So, let's- so back to the whole thing with the Middle East, though. The Middle East is it still is a hostile area. We
It
still have
is.
ISIS in the area. They're still alive. We still have the Taliban in Afghanistan. Do you think Afghanistan is ready to fight the Taliban on their own? You know, seen it many times. You can watch some of the videos from Vice or Vox where they do documentaries on it. We have plenty of Afghan generals who are abusing their power. You mean hurting these poor children in some areas. We had one report of a child molester as a general. Do you really think Afghanistan's ready to take on the Taliban by themselves?
It is not the place of the American public to fund and defend the citizens of Afghanistan.
Well, is it really necessary to have any bases around the world if it's not our place?
We have decided to involve ourselves in things like NATO and other treaties to defend mutual interest. Whereas I do not believe that having our troops in areas where they have to risk hitting car bombs and risk getting shot for the reason they're there is political reasoning. And I really do not feel that the United States should not be in Afghanistan any longer.
Okay.
Now,
So oh, you go ahead, Kaiser.
sorry, I just want to ask a question of Guns. You mentioned NATO a couple of times. Of
Mhm.
course, NATO was created as a pact against Russian aggression
Yes.
during the Cold War. What are your views on Russia, and would you pursue a cooperative foreign policy with them, or would you condemn them for taking over Crimea?
Well,
Or the recent actions in trying to infiltrate Syria. They're pushing Syria, to a brink of
well,
some have stated that they might have pushed them to the brink of civil war. They support Assad. What do you think?
well. Okay. Russia is a is a nation that has a mind of its own. It makes its own decisions. Well, and they don't care about anybody else. Everyone knows this.
Yeah, but
However,
doesn't
with
give them
that
the right
said,
to take over
I
Crimea.
I believe that the United States should work with the Russians to ensure peace. Now, I'm not saying we bow to Russia. No, 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 no. I'm saying, as President Trump tried whenever he was in office temporarily before President Guiltier, we should work for cooperation with the Russians because there's no reason that we should just hate them and despise them because they're influencing the Syrians.
Well,
We're
Trump
influencing
also.
the Syrians as well.
Well,
And whether or not we agree with what Assad's doing is totally unnecessary. And in regards to Ukraine, they're not in NATO. I have a neutral stance on the Ukrainian issue.
President Trump also tried negotiating with the North Koreans to try and get them to denuclearize, get rid of
Yes.
their nuclear program. I mean, to bring peace to that region. Like, are you gonna continue that? Because Guilty Air really didn't focus on that. He hasn't really been focusing on North Korea at all. Are you planning on focusing on North Korea at all in any chance, way, or form to try and bring peace down so we can reduce the number of troops there?
Yes.
Y-
We need to do everything in our power to work toward a peace and a signed treaty and signed peace deal on the Korean Peninsula. That's what that America needs to work with South Korea and North Korea to ensure that we can get a peace deal signed. And I'm committing to you that during my 4 years in office, I will do everything in my power to make sure that North Korea and South Korea are once again brother and sister in arms.
All right. I have one last question on the military slash foreign policy situation. With our military, transgenderism has become a big thing in this country. I mean, people have been advocating for transgender rights and everything. What
Mhm.
I want to know both of your guys' stance on this situation, like this issue. Transgenderism in the military. Do you guys support people being trans in the military? This is a question from
Um,
the chat, by the way. I just wanted to point that out.
do we support the trans
Transgenderism.
community being in? Yes. I don't believe the US government should be funding their surgeries or anything of that nature. However, if they want to serve, they can serve in our armed forces.
And
But however, with that said, they should not get any special privilege just because of what they claim or the
The way they
gender.
identify.
Oh, the way they identify. Yes, that's the better way to say it.
Um,
and I
Senator Ibney, what do you
completely
say?
agree. Yes, apologies. I completely agree with Senator Guns here. If they wish to serve, we have a voluntary military. Anyone can apply to be enlisted. That's how it works. If they wish to serve, they are free to volunteer for that, and they are free to deal with that. Now, in regards to healthcare and all that, Guns mentioned that we should not have to pay for them. I am not fully decided on the issue. There are some reasons I understand from their side, which make it look as if there should be a reason to pay for them, specifically in
Yes.
regards to
Mhm.
healthcare for other soldiers, which is happening there. On the other side, if we have to pay for these things, they seem non-mandatory in many cases.
Well,
Specifically, go
I'm gonna
ahead.
cut in
Yeah,
real quick. When I say not pay for them, I'm not meaning their hormones or anything. I'm talking about the surgeries themselves. If they want a sex change surgery, that's a ridiculously cost very costful surgery that the U.S. government should not have to put on their tab because of them serving and want to get the surgery done. Now, in regards to hormones and stuff, that is
much more
understandable.
minor.
I have a
Yeah,
Yes.
and
here's the thing though. We pay for their education, right? We pay for every soldier's education with the not what was it? I believe there's two different types of ways that we can do it. They either serve they serve their full term. There's full term. They get the GI Bill, or they can get the other one.
Mhm.
Do you guys plan on reforming the GI Bill so that if someone who is trans, maybe if they want to use their GI Bill towards their sex change, they can use their GI Bill towards their sex change? Would you guys be at all in support of that?
No.
You wouldn't be in
I would
support
not
of
be
that.
in. I
No.
specifically wouldn't be in support of it because it's a fund towards education, and
Yeah,
education
Okay.
is very
exactly.
important. So yes, if an expense towards a transition,
Hmm.
that is something that they should be using with their own money, because that is a personal thing. In regards to education, that brings further benefits down the road, such as better jobs. And other things such as that, it allows you to advance your life. Whereas a transition, that is in result of their personal feelings on how they should interact with others and how they should be viewed. And that's fine. It's their life. I understand. I completely understand where they're coming from. However, the US government should not be required to pick up the tab.
Now I want to move on to another topic, just real quickly, because I want to transition from the military, but I want to transition to our veterans as well. Veterans have been abused in this country. I am one of the
Hmm.
people who fight for the veterans on a regular basis. If you guys remember my campaign run, I wanted to fight for the veterans as much as I can. I still do inside, inside Dixie Assembly. Do you guys have any plans to help out our veterans? Do you guys plan on helping their families out as well? Because we know many times veterans come out of the military and they are more likely to become either homeless or into poverty because we failed to help them. They risked their lives for us. We should help them. How do you guys plan on helping them?
Well, that's a great question. As a veteran myself, I understand that veterans are going through a lot. I recently wrote the bill, the Standing Up for Our Veterans Act, which increased funding for the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs. It asked the president for veteran assistance, and it began the process of causing Americans to have a voice and a view on to how bad the treatment of our veterans is. I'm committing that during my 4 years, I will get all of our veterans off the street and I will give them the health care that they deserve because I am sick and tired of seeing our politicians abuse and ignore our veterans. For too long, that's happened. For way too long. They deserve better. They are the former defenders of our democracy. They should get the best treatment that any hospital can give. And I don't support this whole Medicare for all thing, but I do support Medicare for all of our veterans. They deserve to be protected. They deserve to be treated right. They worked for it, they earned it, and now it is our job to take care of them because they took care of us.
Senator Ibney, as Vice President, do you have any plans to help out the veterans or their families, and or both?
Well, again, as the vice president, I'm more of it's a more ceremonial role. It goes to represent the United States as a whole. It's there to increase morale and other such things. So, as the vice president, I would more on the lines of going to visit veterans, helping them out in any way I can, being sort of a PR guy type of thing. I completely agree with Senator Guns in regards to everything he said in regards to veterans. If they require medical services, they should get them. They've served, they've helped our country in so many ways, and I can't be more thankful towards them. However, as the vice president, it is not my place to make specific policy decisions or things like that. I can advise Senator Guns on it. However, at the end of the day, it is Senator Guns' decision, and I completely agree with Senator Guns anyways, so it is somewhat of a mute point.
Okay, so now I want to move off of the veteran affairs. We were just talking about their education and everything. I want to move to the education system in this country now. Dixie is one of the. I am going to gloat a little bit here as a speaker of the Dixie Assembly. Dixie is by far one of the best states when it comes to education, as well as healthcare for our veterans and whatnot, as well as in the environment. When it comes to education, though, do you guys plan on following anything that Dixie has done or Sierra has done when it comes to education, or do you guys plan on doing something new that will boost our education? Because right now the United States is slacking in education. We're behind different other countries. We should not that we should not be behind. Do you guys plan on doing anything to reform our education system?
Absolutely. Listen, education is one of my top priorities for elected president. The American education system is awful, and we put so much money towards it, yet it's awful. It's awful because there's too much federal government involvement on on our education system. Now, I don't support abolishing the Department of Education. No, I don't support any of that. However, I do support giving states more control over curriculum. I support giving states more say in what needs to be done. With that said, I do believe that we need to incentivize some new ideas and new pushes. Um, Homework, for one. It's been proven time and time again, everywhere it's been tested, that homework is bad for students. And I believe that more studies need to be done. But if proven to be true, I would support the United States government incentivizing state governments to
Hmm.
abolish homework, get rid of the idea of homework. I also support and call on all states to raise their teacher salaries to an adequate salary for what they represent. At least all teacher salaries across the board, about at least $2,000, to give them the pay raise that they all want and they deserve. Teachers are underpaid for the job they do. They have one of the most important jobs in the country, and they should be proven that. And I show that my support for the education system by the numerous bills I've wrote. I've written at least 6 or 7 bills that support our education system, whether that was in the Assembly of Atlantic or in the federal docket. But
Now, I have a question
either way.
specifically for this, actually.
Mhm.
Dixie, I don't know about other states though. Dixie, we have an amendment right now up for a vote, a constitutional amendment. Under the Dixie Constitution, there is actually a classroom size limit. Do you guys support? This one's going to be specifically towards you, Guns. There is a question in the chat that I am going to ask that was addressed to you, Guns, but I'm going to push it towards Ibni. This one's for you though. However, Guns, do you support at all? Do you support at all making any amendments like kind of like what Dixie has? Do you guys support making an amendment to the Constitution that limits classroom size, even though it might not be needed, or do you support any legislation that would limit nationwide classroom sizes at all?
I believe that is a state issue, and the federal government should not be directly involved in classroom size. Whereas homework is more of a incentivization. I don't believe that. I mean, small class sizes are better. Everyone knows this, but I believe that that's up to the states to make, and I would not be opposed to an incentivization of classroom size
So giving
decreasing.
states more funding if
But
they keep under a certain
yes,
size? Okay.
yes, but I would not support a punishment. Same for the homework thing. If states don't do it and they shouldn't get any funding revoked because they chose not to listen to the federal government. There
They
should be
should
no
just get denied
punishments to
extra
the state.
funding.
They should just not get yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
So
Ibni,
would you? Oh, sorry. I had to interject. So would you fight to abolish Common Core?
Common Core, yes, it's awful, god awful. Yeah, states need to make their own policies and curriculums to base it on the states themselves because, what might be the curriculum needed in New York is not the same or in Atlantic is not the same curriculum needed in Texas or Dixie.
so my question is this then on that.
New York
Are you
City, I meant.
supporting now, are you going to support states to decide if they want to keep Common Core? If they don't, would they lose their funding?
They would not lose funding if they don't keep
Okay.
Common Core
This
under
one's
my
going to be
presidency.
directed towards Senator Ibney now. This one was addressed to Guns. However, it's from someone in the chat named Super Pacman 04. How can
Mhm.
you make our country's education system more efficient and overall better at teaching only necessary information? I don't know what he means by necessary information. However, I'm guessing he means like math, science, and history as well as English.
Oh, of course. Well, as you all are probably aware, I'm sure Zarin is. I was actually formerly a teacher before I went into politics. I taught AP Gov in high schools, and I have a lot of experience in education and such as that. So, as Senator Guns mentioned, the biggest problem with American teaching methods is specifically how big our class sizes are. It makes it incredibly hard for these teachers to connect with these kids, to help them learn and help them on an individual basis. So I am completely for all the things that Senator Guds said in regards to that. In regards to the specifics of maths, history, uh, English, and all that, I think once again that's a state issue. I believe if we were to push for specific things from the states to help support what we believe would be the best choice, I think that is the best way of doing things. However, in regards to maths, history, and all that, that is once again a state choice and therefore should be left up to them.
Okay. Um, do you have anything else to ask, Kaiser?
Yeah. So I just wanted to transition onto a different topic. That being the Second Amendment. Now, of
Mhm.
course, the Second Amendment is hotly debated in recent years. Senator Guns, what do you what do you think we should do with the Second Amendment? Do you support universal background checks? Would you support banning bump stocks? What would you do?
Um, Another good question, Kaiser. I do not support banning bump stocks. I do not support banning any further guns. That's ridiculous. AR-15 should not be banned in this country. That is a there's no valid argument for that. Guns don't kill people. People kill people, and mental health is the reason for our gun issues. That's a fact. That is a simple fact that sadly the left side of this country doesn't want to admit. Now,
Well, no, that's not true. The socialists love gun rights. Just want to point that out.
well, yes, some of the
It's the
socialists love gun
Democrats
rights.
that are the ones that are against gun rights.
So you say mental health is quite a big reason for all this. Would you support universal mental health screenings for everyone trying to purchase a gun?
Even if it's a violation of their privacy.
Would I support further what?
Would you support? Basically, what Kaiser's asking is, would you support having mandatory background checks on their mental health. Like, would you require them to take a
Yes.
mental health test, even if it's a violation of their privacy and a violation of HIPAA?
Oh, not if it was a violation of HIPAA, but in regards to screening and background checks, yes, I do support background checks.
Do you
That's
believe
as far as I go.
do you believe in reforming HIPAA so that so that your mental health has to be given when trying to go and get a gun?
I believe that because mental health is such a problem in America today that for some reason our government isn't really trying to combat, um, that we should start taking steps to ensure that people who are mentally stable are able to purchase weapons because we can't afford any more school shootings in this country. We can't afford any more mass shootings. And the people doing them are usually unhealthy mentally.
Well,
Now,
there's also been statistics that have been showing that a lot of these school shootings have been the cause of either A, they've been bullied or been bullied by
yes,
these children, or because they have the mental health issue. Do you believe in passing legislation to prevent bullying, even though it's been like the war on quote unquote bullying it has failed completely in this country?
I think that when we took the war on bullying, we or quote unquote war on bullying, we didn't take it in the right way. Just putting up a poster doesn't stop someone from being mean to someone else. People are mean. We need better we need to focus on the households. We need to get parenting. We need to focus on parenting. We need to focus on teaching our children to understand that just because someone says something about you doesn't mean you should make a drastic decision because as one person's being mean to you. Yes, bullying is awful. And yes, depression's rampant in our society today and our teenagers today. And the way to combat that is by explaining to our children that you can get past this. You can make it. And we need to focus more on we should put more money toward bullying prevention. But we just we need to ensure that mentally ill people are not able to get weapons. However, if you I say I support stronger background checks, but when I say stronger background checks, I mean stronger mental capacity checks. In, in or mental capacity, mental illness checks. I don't citizens who do not have a mental illness should not be limited on having a weapon. I mean, if you are physically able and mentally able to carry a gun and you want to carry a gun, you should be able to carry a gun. I mean, not to mention I support open carry across the country. We ought to have open carry across the country. If you have a gun, you're less likely to have a mass shooting. I mean, the easiest way to combat mass shootings is mental healthness prevention and more guns.
Uh, Senator Imney, I got a question for you.
Go ahead.
Being a senator and being a big influence within the Senate as well as just government in general, do you have any plans on trying to promote, cross state line pistol permits or constitutional carry at all? Because we do have a problem where some states do not recognize other states' permits. In Dixie, we do not have permits at all. We have constitutional carry. There's never a permit. It's constitutional open and concealed carry. When someone wants to go from Dixie though to Chesapeake, they can't bring their pistol because they don't have a permit they don't have a permit in Dixie, and and maybe if we did have one, Chesapeake or Atlantic or Great Lakes or Sierra wouldn't recognize our permit. Do you guys have any plans on making a national permit for concealed or open carry that can be brought to any state and, no matter what, that state says?
I I don't think making a national permit is the solution to this problem. I believe that actually the solution to this problem would be some sort of suit in regards to full faith and credit. Now, full faith and credit, as I'm sure everyone is aware, is a section of the Constitution which assures that any license given by one state needs to be affirmed in it. So,
Yeah.
so if one state passes one law in regards to this, it has impacts on all other states. For example, in regards to polygamy, which is apparently now something that we have to deal with in this country, we have to redo that entire mess that was the Mormon church way back when. Polygamy has now been legalized in Chesapeake, which is the biggest 180 I have ever seen. I don't know about you, Senator Guns, but that was kind of crazy. However, it has also been affirmed to be illegal in the state of Sierra. And from what's looking like in court documents in regards to, I believe, care of the undead, he is trying to get a polygamous marriage in the state of Dixie right now, and he's most likely going to be denied. So that's 2 for 1. I believe that in regards to that, that is going to get struck down. However, in regards to actual permits for guns, I believe that we have a good case to make either in the Supreme Court, in other state courts, or anything of that sort to actually get these permits approved in other states on full faith and credit. And I believe that's probably the best way to do it. If it does not happen, maybe loosening restrictions on guns across state lines, maybe improving the Second Amendment rights across the states, and improving the GOP's presence throughout the United States would be a better way of doing it.
Okay. So my question is this though, so even if what about states that do not have permits though? Are they going to be if they get pulled over, if we make it so that they can carry their pistols across borders, are you going to make it so that make a bill or have SCOTUS state that hey, listen, if you just print out your ID, I mean that's your permit right there. I mean, because you're a Dixie citizen, you have the right to conceal carry no matter what.
Full faith and credit essentially requires that under the Constitution. Now, there's over 250 years of actual law and judicial review, which makes that kind of muddied. However, I believe that through that, we can assure that each state has to follow the same rules in regards to that when it comes to these sorts of licenses.
Okay. Now I want to move off this topic. Sorry, guys, if you have any more questions for them, I want to move off this topic because we're getting close to the deadline. We have a couple more topics that I want to touch base on. One of them, this one's going to be about the economy. We did have a question before. I'm trying to look for it right now. But what are your guys? I'm gonna find it in the chat. What are your guys' opinions though on the economy right now? What do you guys have? Do you guys have any plans for the economy? Tax cuts, anything like that?
Yeah. So we're gonna cut taxes for everyone, and then we're gonna cut the corporate tax, and then we're gonna cut government spending because that's what we're gonna do. I mean, it needs to be done, and it is time that we got it done. I mean, I hate when presidents become president and then cut spending. I mean, cut taxes, but don't cut spending. Like, no, we're cutting our corporate tax to 15%, and we're cutting our income tax from the 30% it's at now to 15%.
So you're gonna have
And
15% overall.
15% overall, yeah, of course, flat tax.
Flat tax, wow.
And then once we had the flat tax involved, and we have our 15% corporate tax dropped, or 10% more so, we're then going to cut government spending everywhere where we can find a hole. I'm talking everywhere where we're wasting money is getting back to the American people.
Okay, so
There's going to be no more government waste, and we're going to balance the budget too.
So this is a question for both of you. It's from someone named You Want Fries With That. He says, "Do you support negative income tax or universal basic income?" This is for both of you. So Guns, you're gonna go first. Can you just take 10 seconds to answer this question, then we'll move on to Emily. He takes 10 seconds.
What was your question? Please repeat it one last time.
So it's from a person in the chat named You Want Fries With That. It says, "Do you support negative income tax or a universal basic income tax?"
I do not. No.
You don't support any of them?
I do not believe so.
Emily, do you?
I do not either. I can understand where they're coming from in regards to specific things like cut instead of welfareism, simply giving a universal basic income. However, I do not support it. I don't think it's the best way to go ahead with this.
Okay, and we've seen representatives like APG Revival from the 4th Congressional District in Dixie. What do you guys think about his idea of just a flat out? I forget how he described it. It was an income where it just no matter what. I forget what he calls it, right? I forget what he calls it, but it's just a tax on just a basic tax, right? That how he described it is really confusing. But basically, he just wants a tax on just your income, like just basically what you make. So every time you get a check, you get tax from there. You don't get a tax from sales, you don't get a tax on, your housing. It's just your income. Kind of like an income tax, but not kind of like an income tax is how he described it.
So having solely an income tax
How he
and
describes it
cutting
is
all
one
of
of
the
the
taxes?
weirdest things that he's ever explained to me. But that's what he basically explained to
I'm
me. Like,
confused.
I
all
don't
right,
think that's
we'll skip
I
that
don't think
question.
that's anything that
Um,
we can.
I
It's not.
I'd like to ask a question about the economy real quick. And this one comes from a user called Chili Chili. And he asked, to what level do you support the deregulation of markets? I'm going to ask this question to both of you.
What-
Do you believe that the market should be there should be more or less regulations inside the market?
Oh, the less regulations, the freer the market, the freer the people. That's my statement of that one.
Would you agree with that statement too, Senator Ibany?
I
Except for
would.
monopolies.
Well, I was getting to that. But yes, in regards to monopolies, they are not helpful to actually increasing the economy and are actually hurtful. I don't support them. However, in pretty much all other cases, I am very much a free market person.
Another question from a user called Panther the Ride. And he asks, do you support private healthcare? Guns, do you support private healthcare?
Oh, for sure. Private healthcare is the best healthcare. What the government gets involved in normally doesn't work. So let's look at Obamacare, realize where we messed up, and say a private option is the better option.
And
Um,
is that also a question for me?
yeah, you can answer it too if you like
Of
to.
course, yeah. Again, I'm just going to restate what Gunn said. So I was just making sure that I was supposed to answer that question or not. Just let me know if I'm.
So moving on to a different topic. This one is about the environment. Panther the Ride again asks, what do you think about climate change? And going more broadly with that question, do you recognize climate change as an international crisis in the world?
Yes. Climate change is a huge issue. Now combating it is where I disagree with most of the left. We need an economically stable combat to climate change. Meaning, I'm not trying to kill business. I'm not trying to say you can't do that. I'm trying to say here's why you shouldn't do that. Here's a tax incentive for not doing that. But now, if you don't listen to us, we're not going to punish you, shut your business down. I mean, to be quite frank with you, the Green New Deal is dumb, and anything like it is just not. I'm just not going to pass into law.
So I have a question real quickly about this tax, about the income real quickly. Do you guys? So I figured out what he explained it. He wanted a VAT tax, a value added tax, VAT. Do you guys
Oh,
support that at all? At all? Do you guys support VAT at all? As a way of income instead of, or as a way of tax, as a way of tax instead of like something like income tax or sales tax.
uh, to be honest, I don't really like taxes. So I can say that there's no reason for a value added tax because I'm trying to cut taxes as low as I can get them, and going toward a value added tax doesn't really change anything.
Emily, do you agree with that at all, or have anything different to say?
Of course, we are very much similar on our tax strategy in most cases.
So with that
Yes.
being said, do you support at all repealing the 16th Amendment, which states, which states, that the Senate or like the government in general, the federal government can impose an income tax?
That is a good question.
Um,
In regards to
hmm,
repealing amendments, I usually, for the most part, believe that most of them are there for a good reason. They did have to get quite a lot of to originally be passed. In regards to a federal income tax, much
uh,
of what the government. Do you have something to say?
I do. I don't want to interrupt you though. You can go
That's
ahead
fine.
if you.
Much of what the government gains comes from that tax. So as long as we could find an alternative to raising revenue in the United States, I am completely in support of getting rid of a federal income tax, specifically because uh, these taxes should be leveled on the state side, specifically because you make money on the state side. Everything that the federal government does should have something to do with a federal issue. If you're trading outside of the United States, that's in regards to a federal issue. They can regulate that. In regards to normal income that happens intrastate, there is no reason the federal government should be able to regulate that, specifically because it is an intrastate commerce rather than interstate commerce.
In regards to the income tax, in regards to repealing the federal income tax, If we can get to a point where we can cut the income tax down to where it's almost zero, then I would support repealing the income tax. Only if we can get taxes cut low enough and still be able to supply our nation with the needed funding, as Ibn stated. I mean, I basically agree with what he said. If we can make the income tax not needed, then I support repealing it completely.
So, moving on, this is a different topic. Of course, this is relating to the Supreme Court of the United States. There are currently 2 open seats within the Supreme Court. Guns, what would you, how, who would you, do you already have people in mind who you would use to fill these seats?
Well, I can't get into any information about who I'm considering for what, but I will tell you that if I'm elected president of the United States, those 2 justices will both be conservatives, and those 2 justices will both try to bring balance to our Supreme Court that is strictly liberal.
Well, what happened to your bipartisan stance with your cabinet? Does that not apply to the Supreme Court of the
Supreme
United
Court's a
States?
bit different than my cabinet.
Okay, well, I have a question real quickly to add to that. Is there anything that you see in someone in order to put them onto the bench? Is there anything that you're specifically looking for other than that conservative side?
Well, I want to know that they know how to read the Constitution, of course, and know how to read it for what it says, not for what we want it to say. The Constitution is a pretty straightforward document in most regards, and therefore, I don't want someone who. There are plenty of cases where we've seen, like in Roe v. Wade, where they have decided amendments meant something that they totally don't mean, and the justice that I nominate would not be justice that would make that same decision.
You mentioned Roe v. Wade. Would you work on trying to repeal Roe v. Wade?
I'm pro-life. However, I believe at this point, abortion is one of those things that we are never going to get rid of. And so instead of trying to prohibit it, we should try to limit it as much as we can and get that ruled constitutional. I'm talking like drop down to the heartbeat bill, things of that nature. But that I don't know. I know that's just my stance on the issue. I know a lot of people disagree with my stance on the issue, but I don't support abortion at all. I would never want my wife to have an abortion. I don't want my daughter to have an abortion. I just don't. I believe that abortion is wrong and immoral, and religiously, I'm strictly against it. But legally, I understand that it has become unnecessary in this country, and even if I disagree with it morally, and therefore that's limited as much as we can.
So
And
would you allow? Oh, you go ahead. Sorry.
I actually have something specific to say about this. Me and guns are not entirely the same in regards to the abortion issue. I come from a Catholic background. I believe, just as Guns does, that this is morally wrong, and I don't want to place words in his mouth specifically, but I believe that it is genuine. However, I also am from the school of thought of you cannot base your legal interpretations of something off of your moral view. So for that, I always make the argument against abortion in regards to a legal standpoint and try and justify it there. Myself, I am completely against abortion, and if I were to be elected with guns, I would personally take steps to attempt to reverse Roe v. Wade and make it so that you can only get an abortion when your life is at risk. That is my stance on the issue. Senator Guns has a different stance on the issue, but I believe that because we have different stances, we can work together in the White House to ensure that the best thing comes to fruition.
It's not. Yes,
All right,
I
so
agree that that's a
I'm gonna
prominent
cut
issue
this
as
here
well.
for this topic. We're gonna be moving on to something different now. Right now we got a bunch of questions coming in, so we're gonna go do a live fire, yes or no, and you're just gonna give about maybe 5 seconds to explain why you disagree, why you don't support it, why you do support the question that's at hand. All right. Do you guys understand that? Before we
Of
continue.
course.
Okay, and then followed by that, we're just gonna have the last comments because we're running over an hour now. So we're gonna be starting. So I'm gonna be cutting it right before right here at drone. So this guy's name is super long with numbers, so I'm just going to call him Drone. So Drone is asking, how do you respond to the claims that you are rhinos due to your refusal to support religious freedom or for religious adoption agencies?
My only issue with the religious adoption, I know what he's talking about directly. It's not that I don't support religious adoption agencies, religious freedom. It's that they're getting federal funding, and if they want federal funding, they should be open to everybody. I
Okay.
mean, the federal government doesn't discriminate.
Senator Ibney, your response?
Same thing on my side. I actually abstained from the bill he's talking about specifically because I wanted it to go to the president. I've come to change my mind about that bill, and in regards to it, I completely disagree with it. So I'm 100% on the side of guns, and I believe that my abstention was a mistake at that time.
Alrighty. We're moving on to the next question. This one is from Panther the Ride. Do you support private healthcare? Yes or no?
Oh, yeah, we already had this. I thought we already had this question.
Just real quickly, just explain if you do, like, just real quickly, because some people might have missed.
Yes, because private healthcare works and government healthcare doesn't.
Senator Ibney?
Private healthcare works. Public healthcare usually doesn't.
I know that we also asked this question. This one's from Alexander Ramsey. Do you support birthright citizenship? I know that you touched based on this, saying that you wanted to reform it a little bit, but do you support birthright citizen guns? Yes or no?
Mm, yes.
Senator Ibney?
I think there should be caveats, such as they have
Oh,
to be in the United States for a certain amount of, maybe 3 months, maybe 6 months. But in regards to birthright citizenship, I do support it in some cases.
I agree with what Ebony said. I didn't really go into more detail like that.
So, Pac-Man asks, what's your opinion on the increasing secularization of our country? Guns, you go first.
Well, I think that's one of the that's one of the main core reasons of our country that is causing our country to be so divided. We can't really do much about the secularization, but I can say that God comes first in my eyes, and
Senator Ibney?
that's all I can really say about that in regards to.
I make most of my decisions based off of what I believe to be the most logical thing. I believe that religion is not separate. So I do believe that religion is a booster and a help to people in general. However, again, as Senator Gunn said, First Amendment does not allow the government to get entangled in religious affairs. I would personally, as vice president, support things in my private time that would help boost religious observance across the nation. However,
Yes,
it is not the government's place to pick or choose sides in regards to religion.
I agree.
This question, I'm gonna
you
go
go,
real
sorry.
quickly. I have actually a pretty good question here for you guys. This one
Yeah,
is
of
also
course.
from Panther the Ride. What do you think about climate change? Just real quickly, give us a brief,
Uh,
like a sentence or two of what you believe it is. Like, what do you believe on it?
cli- Climate change is a real issue. It needs to be combated, but the combatant that needs to be used, it has to be economically affordable and not cause economic strain at all.
Senator Ibney?
I will quote what I said on Speakership Memory's resolution in support of climate change. I believe it was called "Climate Change Bad."
All right, Senator Guns, yes and no. Do you think that do you support decentralizing Medicare and Medicaid?
Yes. No. Wait. Well, repeat the question, please.
Do you support decentralizing Medicare and Medicaid?
Oh, yes.
Senator Ibney?
Yes.
All right. We're gonna have one last question here. This one's for Drone. I think this one's gonna really clear the air. Senator Ibney, you are someone that's against the recent opinion made by the Dixie Supreme Court on what was it, Kerry versus Dixie Inn. I believe
Kerry
you were
versus
as well,
Dixie.
Senator Guns.
hmm
This one's from Drone. Why do you hate religious freedom?
That's okay. That that's a ridiculous question. I support religious freedom, and I believe that if, for example, someone should be allowed to refuse service if that person, if committing that service would strictly go against their religious belief, if it's a private business with no federal funding. Like, I mean, However, there's no religion that's anti-skin color. There's no religion that's anti what you wear. I mean, so should religious freedom be accepted? Yes, but when it comes to public funding, no, because religion and government aren't supposed to legally go hand in hand
Senator Ibney,
in regards to legislation.
I'm gonna real quickly edit this question because I'm gonna make it a little harder for you. Senator Ibney, with the whole thing with Dixie and Kerry versus Dixie, and what do you believe? What do you believe is a balance between the two?
Well, I don't know if some of our viewers know or not. I was actually the lead counsel on Carrie v. Dixie, and I represented Robert Carey and Sharon Edwards,
And you
two very
also
close friends of mine.
hosted a protest against the
I
decision.
did, yes. Uh, Carrie v. Dixie was one of the worst decisions the Dixie Supreme Court has ever made. It was completely out of line. There were two prongs of what was asked that were not even requested to be ruled on by the court. It was a completely out of left field, which set back race relations for at least 50 years. It basically led to the invalidation of the Federal Civil Rights Act in the state of Dixie by a appellate court, which decided a federal issue on a state case. It was completely ridiculous, and I completely do not support that issue in general. However, in regards to what Guns was talking about, I would go a step further and say, in regards to public accommodations, you cannot discriminate based on someone's race or sex in that way. It is not specifically based on whether or not you have federal funding. There are certain things where the government has a vested interest in stopping, such as race, which is a Supreme Court ruling from many years ago. It should not be a person's worry that they will get thrown away from a lodging, especially in regards to the case of Dixie Inn, where the Robert Carey and Sherwin Edwards had to go several hours away from Dixie Inn to find a new place of lodging, did not get any sleep, were forced to essentially wait out their time instead of actually sleeping at a hotel. It causes great danger, and it increases race tensions within the United States and is not good for the United States. So I do not support any uh, any softening of regulations in regards to accommodations, in regards to anything in regards to race, and I would support further regulations to ensure that this doesn't happen again.
Alrighty, we're gonna be moving on from questions now. I'm gonna give you guys both about 3 minutes each. You guys are both going to be given basically like a closing statement, what you guys are for and everything. Okay, any like final comments you want to give. All right, We're gonna actually start off the opposite way now. We're gonna start off with the vice president, and then we'll have the president as the final comment. Um, Senator Ibney, you have 3 minutes from now to give your final statements, final closing comments that you want to give to this, to the podcast.
Of course. The United States has been under a Democratic leadership for far too long. We've been haunted by the ghosts of the past, specifically former President Trump, and have not been able to get a Republican in office. Now we are faced with an incredible opportunity to actually take the White House, take the Senate, take the House as well. It is the greatest opportunity we've had in so long, and I am so happy to be a part of the team which is leading it. I have worked tirelessly to ensure that the Republicans have a great chance going into these federals, and I am so excited to see what is going to happen, and I'm so glad I got to be here. I do my best to represent the American people, and I hope that they will vote for us come election.
Senator Guns, you may start now.
Well, the time for change in America is now. The American people just got through with 8 years of an awful president who divided this country and and we haven't really moved forward. The time for change is now. I mean, it's time to elect a conservative to the White House. It's time to elect a, a Republican who's going to fight for your values, who's going to fight for what you believe in, and is going to listen to all sides before making a decision. We need a unified America. And I promise you that I will try and I will fight for a unified America for elected president of the United States. I'm sick and tired of the partisanship. The people of this country are sick and tired of the partisanship. The people in this country are sick and tired of nothing efficiently getting done because our country can't work together. I'm promising you that if elected president of the United States, I will fight to bring change. I will fight to bring unity, and I will fight for you, the people. Because, as I said twice now, it's time for change, America.
All right, thank you guys both for coming, to our live stream today. Thank you all for coming to the podcast. Thank you,
Thank you.
for tuning into this amazing interview. It was great to have my co-host Kaiser here. It's great to have someone on this Dixie show. You know how it works. I'm the lone wolf here. Don't really have people on it.
Thank you.
I think both both you, Senator Guns and Senator Ibney, for coming out to this. Best of luck on your guys' election campaigns.
Thank you, Chris. Very much appreciate it.
God bless.
If you guys are new to this podcast, the Dixie Show, make sure you hit that nice follow button right up there above my my Twitch stream right there. Make sure you also hit that subscribe button. It really helps. And you get amazing emotes as well. So thank you all for coming out. Just gonna do some little plugging there on YouTube. Thanks. Anyways, I hope you all have a great night. Thank you all for coming to this live stream, and God bless you all.